Good morning, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please introduce yourself and how you would like to be addressed.
My name is Robert Wright, pronouns he, him. I'm the president of the Nova Scotia College of Social Workers. And I can certainly just be addressed by Robert. It's fine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So today you have 10 minutes, and they'll be followed by 5 minutes of questions. So your time is yours. Go ahead.
Thank you. We are particularly concerned with at the Nova Scotia College of Social Workers for the Regulated Health Professions Act. Though the college welcomes the opportunity to collaborate with government on social work regulation under this act, we have two outstanding concerns that we'd like to bring to the members' attention. The two concerns that we have is first that advocacy is an essential component of social work practice, not a separate or optional element of our practice, and the Act seeks to eliminate advocacy from the function of professions, or at least there is a risk that that may occur. And second, that there has not been significant consultation with the Nova Scotia College of Social Workers as the regulator of the social work profession. There had not been significant consultation before the implementation of this bill. Our approach to regulation is rooted in right touch regulation and advocacy to ensure that the public is safeguarded from harm while advancing equity, justice, and accountability. To support this approach, the Nova Scotia College has developed a comprehensive model for regulation, a framework for safer social work practice. We urge the government to consider this framework as a vital tool in fulfilling the Regulated Health Profession Act's broad mandate as we work together towards integration and a shared commitment to public safety and professional excellence. The college's regulatory approach is guided by a strong commitment to accountability, transparency, and adaptability in addressing emerging challenges in the field. This framework defines areas to enhance safety and protect from harm to ensure the safe and ethical delivery of social work services, with a focus on Nova Scotia's most structurally vulnerable populations. And it is this responsibility that social workers have for those members of our public who are most structurally vulnerable that requires the profession to have the capacity to comment and advocate on those structures that impact members of the public. Key members of the regulatory framework that we currently implement is identifying areas for improvement, assessing the impact of various interventions, guiding strategic actions, and even monitoring practice development. And finally, promoting transparency and accountability. Our regulatory framework at the college is robust, intensive, and focused on protecting the public. This structured approach enables continuous growth within the profession while maintaining public confidence and upholding the values central to social work. And I say that again, values that are central to social work, not ancillary or voluntary. The social in social work requires that the profession have values that include advocacy for those we serve. Our regulatory philosophy is informed by two key philosophies: a right touch approach and aligned with the standards for good regulation that have been developed by the Nova Scotia Regulated Health Professions Network. This right touch approach is an approach to regulation that attempts to be minimally intrusive while maintaining high public trust. The other is the philosophy of addressing structural challenges within the social work profession. Because of the nature of social work, social workers frequently encounter systemic barriers that hinder their ability to provide safe and effective services to their clients. These challenges include high workloads, limited funding, moral stress and distress, and structural inequities. By advocating for different policy and program approaches to these structural barriers, the college ensures that social workers can deliver accountable, ethical, and powerful services to protect the public from harm and serve the public interest. The college's efforts are informed by pivotal reports and reviews that highlight areas of systemic reform. I'm sure members here are familiar with the many reports that have occurred over the years that have given us great insight into some of the structural harms and difficulties that have occurred in our province, including the inquiry into the Home for Colored Children, the Turning the Tide report from the Mass Casualty Commission, Building the Future We All Deserve, a social policy framework, Reclaiming Power and Place, the final report of the National Inquiry into Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls, Creating the Future We All Deserve, a social policy framework for Nova Scotia, and many, many other government-sponsored or government-received and accepted reports that recognize a need for structural and systemic change in order to promote the public's best interest. Social workers are well-placed in their day-to-day roles to be constantly advocating for the very changes that these reports highlighted in their daily work. Again, not as a voluntary or an ancillary function. These reports provide critical insights into systemic issues and opportunities for reform. So by integrating these findings into its safer social work framework, the college consistently seeks to advance safer, ethical practices while promoting the values of equity, justice, and community well-being. Finally, the college is steadfast in its commitment to advancing its public safety mandate to protect the public from harm and serve the public interest through meaningful collaboration with the government under the Regulated Health Professions Act by aligning our mission with the Act's mandate to protect the public from harm and serve the public interest. We aim to create a regulatory framework that not only ensures accountability, but also fosters trust and transparency for and within the social work profession. Of course, for that to occur, the college would need to be a recognized, essential partner in the implementation of the Act as it relates to social work, which would require a high degree of collaboration, integration, and cooperation, something that we have not seen yet in the proposal of this Act. We urge the government to embrace this framework as a vital tool in fulfilling the Act's vision. Together we can build a regulatory system that protects the public, empowers social workers to fulfill their responsibility and their professional mandate for advocacy, and advances the values of equity, justice, and community well-being. I want to thank you for the time to be here to say a few words to you this morning.
Great. Well, thank you very much for your presentation. We'll now open the floor up for 5 minutes of questioning. MLA Rankin.
Yeah, thank you, Robert, for the presentation. Question on process. So your second concern mentioned around lack of consultation. Just want to ask the question, when did you hear about this bill being brought forward, and what did consultation actually look like?
We heard really. I'm sorry. That's my fault. It's my first time chairing this meeting. I recognize Mr. Wright. Thank you. We were notified that social work would be included under the Regulated Health Professions. I could say late in the game, so there was no real consultation. We were just informed that the legislation the bill would be going forward, and it would include the regulation of social work. So there was no significant consultation.
Thank you. MLA Wozni.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. President, I'm wondering if you can outline for us, I guess, sort of ongoing, normal, run-of-the-mill relationship with the Department of Opportunities and Social Development. What structural, sort of usual channels exist for the minister and yourself to have discussion about areas of mutual concern? Recognizing your comments that really no prior notice that you learned about this legislation in effect as it was being tabled. I don't want to assume that there is no ongoing, regularly structured dialogue. I wonder if you could paint us a picture about the ability of the college to liaise in an ongoing, meaningful way, and whether or not those opportunities were used by the minister in advance of tabling this legislation.
Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm the president of the college. Our executive director sits behind me, Alex Stratford. And we do have regular opportunities to be in touch with both the Minister of OSDP and the Deputy Minister. I've been the president of the college for just under 2 years, and I know last summer I've met with the minister on a couple of occasions. And so those opportunities do present themselves, and we work cooperatively and collaboratively on a number of issues. So to have just a week's notice that we would be under the regulation was perhaps something that came out of left field, one would say.
Thank you. MLA Gallagher.
Thank you, Chair. I guess we don't have a lot of time, so the quick question is why? Why, like limited consultation, why do you think these changes are being proposed?
Mr. Wright.
The legislation seems to give government and empowers the minister to have quite sweeping powers. And, the hallmark of a profession is that it is self-regulating. So, of course, the question would be, if under this act, health professions are self-regulating, why the need for such sweeping powers for the minister? And will the minister use that power in a collaborative way to help to engage in conversation with the professions about things that may need to be addressed? Or will the power be used unilaterally to essentially fundamentally change the nature of a profession? As I say, advocacy, which is one of the issues that seems to be under threat in this legislation, is not something that is ancillary to social work. It is core to the profession. And we would be concerned that this legislation would seek to fundamentally change the nature of the profession.
Thank you. The time for questioning is up. We will thank you very much for your presentation today, and thank you for answering the questions. And we'll shift out and bring our next presenter. Please introduce yourself, who you represent, if anyone, and how you would like to be called.
Thank you. My name is Marion Brown. I'm here just representing myself, although I've spent the weekend talking with social workers. I'm a social worker. I've been a licensed social worker since 1990, and I've been an educator at Dalhousie since 2002. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you today. I haven't done this before, so it was interesting to sit and watch a little bit. I apologize if I get a couple things wrong. So I am here to express my concern regarding the government's plan to repeal the Social Workers Act of 1993 and bring the profession under the Regulated Health Professions Act. I think it's a distinct move to silence social workers. The critique brought by the college over the years is uncomfortable for government. It's informed by evidence, fueled by conviction, and rooted in the values of the common good. This current government knows that social workers will name how racism, colonialism, white privilege, ableism, misogyny, transphobia, and all of their tendrils are embedded in social systems. So I believe that this is motivated by control and discomfort and fear. Independent self-regulation helps social workers make decisions based on professional expertise rather than political and administrative priorities. The Regulated Health Professions Act provisions politicize professional regulation, with government officials able to override professional judgment. And in areas like scopes of practice, standards of care, and ethical obligations, we already know that political priorities, often driven by neoliberalism and fiscal austerity, differ from those of the social work profession. Being subsumed under the Regulated Health Professions Act will silence the independent social work voice that champions vulnerable populations. Social work settings of child protection, employment supports, income assistance, community mental health, and addictions are intense fields of practice requiring specialized analysis and skill. And we can't have government comprised primarily of non-social workers directing social workers in how they should and should not be doing their jobs. The college does far more than license professionals or licensed practitioners. It defines ethical standards, holds members accountable, and safeguards public interest through advocacy on social welfare policy. The college has standards of practice tailored to the work and the values of the profession, and they are distinct. For more than 3 decades, the Social Workers Act has provided a regulatory structure that reflects the full scope of social work practice in this province. Social workers serve in hospitals, yes, and mental health clinics, but also schools, child welfare, housing programs, restorative justice, anti-racism organizations, Indigenous-led services, disability supports, seniors care, and community development sessions, not just health, although all of it is health. Our work, of course, addresses individual well-being, but also systemic forces that shape health and opportunity. Poverty, racism, gender-based violence, we just heard so compellingly about, ableism, housing insecurity. And so to subsume social work within a generalized health professions framework narrows our mandate to a biomedical lens and diminishes our essential role in addressing the structural determinants of health. And I have to say, I think that this is what this government wants, for social workers to fall in line with biomedical, individualized lenses of clinical practice and set aside our foundations of knowledge, our deep analysis, our code of ethics, which require us to do much more. Social workers serve as advocates, system navigators in Black communities, Indigenous communities, newcomers, people with disabilities. I've listed these already. Our professional standards center anti-oppressive practice and cultural humility and social justice. So regulation, social work regulation, has to reflect the diversity of social work practice and uphold the profession's responsibility to challenge systemic injustice and not merely manage its effects. We download systemic issues onto individuals when we deny that analysis. I also question why the lack of consultation regarding this proposed change. Regulatory reform is supposed to be collaborative and transparent, so why not include practicing social workers across this province, Black and Nova Scotian and Indigenous, Mi'kmaq social workers and community leaders, disability justice advocates, queer communities, service people with lived experiences, and all of their advocates. Without that engagement, I think there's an erosion in confidence in both the profession and in government decision-making. Our college, represented so well here by Robert Wright, is committed to consultation with our practitioners across the province. They've done an excellent job in the most recent years in really bringing our practitioners together. The health and well-being of Nova Scotians depends not only on clinical health services, but on strong social infrastructure and advocates who address systemic inequities. Social workers are central to that infrastructure, and we need to have the self-regulation that lets us do our job. Our regulation should reflect our full mandate and not reduce it. Citizens of this province are better served when we protect and not dilute these foundations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and we'll open the floor up for 5 minutes of questioning. MLA Wozni.
Thank you for your testimony. Thank you for furthering our understanding of the nature of social work and its essential scope of practice. We heard the minister in debate last week talk about how regulated health professions, they regulate the profession, they're not advocates. But I think you've done a wonderful job of explaining that social work is different. It is distinct in this respect. Is there a pathway to the current regulatory framework for licensure for social workers? Is there a pathway towards establishing social workers under this new domain that protects their ability to be advocates? In your opinion, is there a pathway if legislation was framed properly?
Oh, Mrs. Brown.
I heard Robert Wright's thoughts on regulatory reform, and in that regard, I do defer to the college. Personally, I don't think so. I think that social work, as I've stated, is a distinct profession, well beyond the scope of what most people think of as health. As I noted, I think all of it is health, but in the current sort of discourse, health is considered and sort of subsumed under the biomedical. Social work is required to be more than that. As Robert Wright said, it's not ancillary, it's not sort of tangential. So I personally don't see a space for social work under the Regulated Health Professions Act and think it deserves its own. I was a new social worker when the Act came in 1993, and it was heralded as a significant advancement for the profession of social work. And although it's not without its required amendments, it allows for the profession to be distinct and live up to its full scope of practice. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you very much for attending today. We appreciate your submission.